Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and I'm excited to have Per Sjöfors with us. Per is a thought leader in everything pricing and how companies can use pricing to drive higher growth, sales volume, and profits. He's a sought-after speaker for various conferences, appears regularly on podcasts and business radio shows, and gets routinely quoted in the financial and business press. He's also known as the Price Whisperer. Per, it's so great to have you on the show.
Stephan, yes, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you very much for that introduction.
Yeah,
and obviously this is, your show is called Marketing Speech, and one of the 4 P's of marketing obviously is pricing, and it's often the forgotten P, to be honest.
yeah.
So
yeah, well, I'm excited that we're going to delve into that because there is an art and a science to pricing products and services in a most effective and optimal way. So we're going to learn all about that in this episode. So first, I'd love to start with your origin story a bit of what got you so excited to delve into pricing as your area of focus in your business life, and also why our listener should care about pricing, because it is essential to a business's growth to get pricing right. So let's start there.
Yeah, let me start with the second topic. It's very interesting, actually, that for any company, the resulting profit comes from only 3 variables. It comes from the cost of whatever you sell, the sales volume of whatever you sell, and the price of what you sell. And if you do a simple calculation, you will find that of these 3, pricing affects profitability the most. And in fact, doing a sort of a thought experiment, and I've looked at this on oodles of companies. For the average company, if you're able to increase your sales volume with 1%, your profit, again, for the average company, will go up 3.5%. If you're able to reduce your cost with 1%, profitability will go up 5.5%. But if you're able to increase your price with 1% or reduce your discount with 1%, profitability will go up 11.3%. Now, why is this so important? Well, because it's profit that drives your company. It is profit that gives you the resource to market more, to develop more product or define more services. It is profit that drives shareholder value. And I have a little challenge to the listeners here, and that is this, and I call it the 1% challenge. And this is, have you ever failed to change something 1%? Of course not. It is so tiny that when you start looking at this from a pricing perspective, you're looking at increasing your prices with 5% or 10%, or reducing your discount with 5 or 10%. And it will increase your profit spectacularly and give you the resources to become even more competitive. And that is the power of pricing. Now, one more thing that is interesting. In a research project we did a couple of years ago, we asked a few hundred American CEOs the question, which of these 3 variables affects your profitability and the value of your company the most? And 82% said more sales. Which is crazy, which means that, and it also meant kind of interesting that we looked at the 12%, I think it was, that says pricing. And those turned out to be the market leaders in their industry. So those are companies who really understand the value here of using pricing as a profit lever and as a value lever. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question is, how did I get into this? And what happened is that I ran a couple of companies in Europe before I got here to the States, and I came here to establish and run a division of a fairly large public company. And then I've been running a few other companies after that. And in these companies, we did experiments with pricing. Some of those experiments were tremendously successful, like next quarter revenues are up 25%. Others were complete duds. And many were sort of inconclusive. And what I had learned in business school and can read about pricing was so academic and so theoretical that it was completely useless information. And it didn't help us at all to understand why some of those experiments worked and others didn't. So 14 years ago, when I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun, I set up my own company, and I decided to develop a process that would make every pricing experiment a success. And that is the process that we are still using.
Right. And the pricing experiments that you conduct, they're on behalf of clients, or they're part of original research projects, or both? And you know, how do you formulate these? How do you come up with the hypotheses and do research?
In the companies I ran, it was just experiments. You know, we tried this pricing, we tried that pricing, and so forth. What we do for our clients in our company is, and this is the basics of the work we do, is that we have a methodology it's based on a very different kind of online market research, very different than what you would get from a market research company. And in that, we can accurately predict sales volume at different prices and revenue at different prices. But then that's just the very first step, because then we correlate that prediction with different customer profiles of our client. So we can advise our client, focus on this profile because it's going to lead to the highest sales volume and the highest revenue. And then we do the same thing with features, functions, and benefit of a product or service. So we tell them, focus on these features, functions, and benefit because it's going to lead to the highest sales and the highest revenue. And the same with marketing. So we tell them, these are the marketing channels and these are the marketing messages that's going to be most effective in driving sales and driving revenue. And the same with sales, what sales channels are most effective, what sales messages and methodologies are most effective. And in the end, obviously, we recommend a pricing strategy that would minimize friction and maximize sales and revenue. So it's really a complete go-to-market strategy based on hard data and based on leveraging or understanding what is the most effective in driving sales and revenue.
So do you change the pricing based on the marketing or sales channel that you're selecting? So you give different pricing to different constituents through different channels?
Yes.
And how do you avoid ticking off one person who paid a higher price when they find out that there's a lower price if they came through a different channel?
Well, it's all about, you can't just change the price. You need to position the product or the service differently, or you may need to have a different set of features and functions. So most may be the same, but not all of them. So there need to be differentiators, and that sort of brings me to another thing, because especially when you look at commodities or near commodities, the trick here is to find differentiators that are meaningful for the constituency of buyers. And let me give you an example of that. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we worked with a company here in Southern California who rents out these steel plates that you drive over when there's a trench in the street. And if you can imagine something more commoditized than a piece of steel, tell me. But I mean, it's a piece of steel. But this company differentiated itself in meaningful ways by providing training services. So they trained the buyers and the workers that are on site digging those trenches and so forth on safety and a few other things. And because of that, the company was seen as the thought leader in the industry. And not only could they command about 25% higher prices than competition, they also had about a 65% market share in their market. So, and become a very, very profitable company. Selling a commodity.
That's a great example. Now, what about, let's say, a marketing consultant or consultant? What sort of example do you have to share of successful repositioning and repricing?
Well, every company talk to its customers, From that, they get a sense. Well, not only do every company talk to its customers, every company also goes to market with a certain value proposition and a certain marketing. That marketing attracts a certain number of clients, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is that when a company talks to its clients and only talks to its clients, it gets a skewed view of the market, because only those who accept the customers, the client's marketing messages and value proposition becomes actual customers, right? So if you ask them why they bought and what they were looking for and how, all the normal stuff, you're talking in an echo chamber. You hear back the reasons that you use to market. And as an example, we did a project for a fairly large digital agency that is building these very comprehensive websites. And when we're talking websites that they charge between $250,000 to $1 million for, what we found was that their customers echoed back the value proposition that the company had. But in fact, there was a completely different set of customers that for which different value messages, different marketing messages were important, and also selling to a different constituency within these large companies who buy these expensive websites would significantly increase that company's market reach. So they had a situation where they went to market with a value proposition. They heard that same value proposition echoing back, and they were missing out on actually a much larger market that was attracted by other marketing messages, other positioning statements, and that led actually to a higher willingness to pay than what the company had.
Well, that's a great example. I'd love to hear what the original positioning was and what that positioning was changed to after your research.
What the original message was very technical, right? And so they attracted buyers for which the technical piece of a website, what you do on the website, and all different technical things that I mean, we did the research, but I don't have any insights of what these technical details means. The larger market were much more interested in the resulting benefits. So the company essentially had to change the way they went to market, and I know from the CEO that this has been very, very successful, and suddenly they don't have pushback to their fairly expensive prices for these websites anymore.
Right. So an example of that might be switching from a focus on things like page speed and technical details of the website infrastructure, architecture, to things like we found a 3% or 5% increase in customer retention or in average order value after we redesigned our clients' websites across the board on average, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I mean, this is again a fairly large agency with, I don't know, 150 people or something like that. But the marketing people were very influenced by their technical people in how they did the marketing. So, and I mean, page speed. What's the benefit of that? Well, the benefit is that you have a lower bounce rate. It made a big difference for the company.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what sort of ROI do you typically get for your clients? If they spend whatever X amount of money with you, do they get a 5X or 10X or 100X ROI working with you?
ROI is typically between 2 to 4 weeks. even for fairly small companies. But we have.
So what you're saying is, in
we
2 to
have
4 weeks, they will get their money back in increased profit from the
Mhm.
expenses of hiring you. That's
Yes,
great.
and let me give let me tell you another story here, which is kind of, now this is unusual, so don't think that this is going to work for everybody. But a company, actually a LA-based company here, who's got a phone system in the cloud, we discovered that they were way underpriced, so underpriced, in fact, that they could quadruple their prices. And if you go to market with too low prices, the price itself always sets an expectation of the quality and benefit that your product or service has. Right. And if you have too low price, people won't buy because they don't think it's any good. And we've all been there. We look at the price of something, we want to buy it, and then we say, no, I don't think so. This is too cheap. What I've seen on my Facebook feed lately is a company who promote selling Apple Macs for like $89, brand new Macs. And for me, it must be a scam, right? Yeah. Or in the end, when you put your details, your credit card details there, there's going to be a $1,500 delivery fee or something like that. This particular company, they were way underpriced, so they followed our advice and they quadrupled their prices.
Wow.
Not in one go, but over a time period of 6 or 7 months. And two things happened. First off, their sales volume increased with about 25%. And then they got a completely different set of customers. And using the technical term that the CEO used when he told me this, he said, we got rid of the bottom feeders. Mm-hmm. And now we have a more professional level of customers. And because of that, our customer support costs have gone down with 80%. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's impressive.
Just by changing price.
Yeah. I'd love to give you my pricing and have you, I don't know, like tear it apart live here on the show, because I'm sure I'm not doing it in the most optimal way. Now, I haven't raised my prices for audits and monthly retainers and so forth for a decade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the prices are high.
That itself is a big myth.
The prices are high, so yes. I am at the top end of the market, but you get to work with me, so I think that's worth it. And so, but we tried an experiment last year. I'll fill you in on that in a minute. But $35,000 for an SEO audit. It's expensive. That's an expensive audit.
Yes.
Keyword strategy, 15 to 20K, depending on the scope of it. Link building strategy, 20 to 25K, depending on the scope. And other major deliverables, a la carte, in that kind of price range. So they're significant deliverables. They take many weeks to produce. This is not just hit a button and a report comes out. And if they're working with us on an ongoing basis, there's a monthly retainer. $15,000 is the minimum, and it's usually a 3 or 4 month minimum length of engagement, and then month to month after that. So my question to you is, in that kind of pricing model, without raising our prices in 10 years, where can we go? Can we quadruple our prices? I don't think so. But
no, I don't think so either.
I think there's a way to reprice so that it's a win-win. And I don't know what the secret to that is. Do we break up the audit into 3 audits? We've tried that as well. Like, so there's a link audit, technical SEO audit, and a content audit, and then price those separately, like 15K each. And then if you buy all 3, then it's 35K instead of 45K. So we've experimented with that. And I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Well, first of all, what is the result of these experiments?
So we don't sell very many 35K audits. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have statistically significant enough data to report back to you on, when we positioned it as 3 audits that you could buy separately, or all 3 for a
Mm-hmm.
combination of, essentially a $10,000 discount. I don't have statistically significant data on that. I just don't have enough sales. I mean, yeah, we're a significant size business. We're still not able to give you meaningful data. Anecdotally, I think it's a good way to go, but I don't have,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's the feeling. That's like a a gut
Your
reaction
gut
instead
feeling.
of
Yeah.
based on hard data.
Well, so 2 reactions. First off, yes, you're at the top of the market, obviously. The other is that what was very unique, and a knowledge that was very unique 10, 15 years ago is not so unique anymore. This had been much more commoditized and so forth. So what that leads to is really a loss of pricing power. So there's 2 things that that I'm thinking of. First off, it's all about customer targeting. And I assume that what you do is you're targeting, and your customers are the typical Fortune 2000s or large companies, and obviously that is that's where you need to continue to focus
Yeah.
with those
That
prices.
said, I have had some
Um,
great successes with some low 7-figure businesses and growing uh,
mhm,
them and getting them really great results. Even a low 6-figure business has been with me for 5 years now, and they've really
wow.
grown. They're 7 figures now, and it's 9 million unique visitors a month. So that's a
Hmm.
great success story.
Yes. Um, but you're also saying that you sell quite few of these,
Correct. Yeah.
but I assume they're pretty profitable, you know.
Oh, very profitable, but
And
also high results, rewards for the client. One example
mhm,
is macsales.com. Speaking of selling Apple Mac just a few minutes ago.
mhm,
So they sell hard drives and memory for Mac so that you can replace those components and not have to buy a brand new machine every 2 years. We got them
mhm,
after an
mhm.
audit within 2 months, an extra, well, I can't give real specific numbers here, but
Yes, of
multiple
course.
millions.
Mhm.
That's a pretty good
Oh.
ROI on an audit that actually
Oh,
they
absolutely.
didn't pay for directly. They um, so I donate an SEO audit every year to Impact Network
Mhm,
nonprofit that builds and operates schools in Zambia. I'm on their board. So I donate an audit that I'll do, like the full 35K audit. I won't receive a penny for it. The
mhm,
That offer goes up on the Charity Buzz website, and then there's an
mhm,
auction, and with 100% of the proceeds going to the charity. And I've been doing
mhm.
that for a few years now, like 4 years, pretty much every time, except
Good.
maybe once. They turned into a long-term client, which is amazing. I
Mm.
definitely believe in business karma. But that wasn't like the whole shtick or like the angle that I was coming. I just purely wanted to give, and yeah, it's like $15,000-$20,000. You could build a school in rural Zambia, so that's a
Sure.
big impact for not a lot of money. Anyway, so I
Yeah.
donated an audit. So I didn't receive anything. I don't really know what macsales.com what they paid for that audit, but it was, 5-figure sum and
Mhm,
several $1 million in revenue within a couple months, and additional revenue that couldn't be attributed to any other activities other than implementing the SEO audit. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is, and for a good cause. So it's a win-win-win here. So again, it's to defend those high prices that you have. It is customer targeting, though, and that means in your case, size of company, industry, how they sell, and so forth. Even the title of the buyer, the title of the influencers in the company, and so forth. So understanding how all of that impacts the what they're willing to pay, and also just like I mentioned with this little case study, also what marketing messages you use, right? Yes, you can obviously do a lot of testing. The problem with testing is that, let's say you want to test 5 different marketing messages, 5 different positioning statements, 5 different customer profiles, and then 5 different prices. So suddenly you have, you have what, 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. What is that? It's a couple of hundred, and you want to test all these combinations, and that takes a very long time. And not only does it take a long time, if you have returning customers, and if the audience have returning customers and see ever-changing prices and ever-changing messages, they get confused. And if you get confused, you're not going to buy, right? So the methodology that I developed will tell you all of this in one go. And there is very little need for testing. Now, there's one thing on your prices here that is worthwhile considering. That's there is something called price walls. And price walls are psychological price points where small price changes generates a significant change in sales volume and revenue. And to illustrate that, let me give you an example. I spent some time with one of the VPs at HP just before the pandemic here. And one of the things he told me was that they had done some testing with one of their computer models. They sort of inched up the price a dollar at a time as they were carefully looking at the sales volume, and they could go up $17 without any change in volume whatsoever. But if they went up $18, sales just fell through the floor. So that meant 2 things. First off, they had found one of these price walls, right? But it also meant that they had been leaving $17 on the table. And that makes a difference when you're selling 10,000 of this computer a day and it's a low margin product.
Right.
So knowing where these price walls are is really, really crucial. And while the price walls are often at prices we can think of, $100, $1,000, $10,000, and so forth.
$35,000.
What we don't know without no, I can assure you that $35,000 is not by a price wall. There's probably going to be a price wall at 25,000. There's probably going to be a price wall at 50,000. Now, what you're selling is something very unique and already quite expensive, So it's it may well be, if nothing else, because you haven't increased your prices for 10 years, that you can go up to just below that price wall. That's going to be at 50,000. Now, without doing the work that we do in my company, you would not know how severe those price walls are, right? You may know where they are, but you don't know how severe it is. And it may be that you cross one of these price walls and your sales volume goes down with 2%. It may also be that you cross one of these price walls and your sales volume goes down with 40%. But the other thing is that because we can model sales volume at different prices and revenue at different prices, or the company, our client, can really make that trade-off between volume and revenue and profit. And I mean, sometimes you really want to focus on volume because you want to take advantage of the network effect and, grow your market share and stuff like that. At other times, you want to focus on revenue at a lower sales volume, which then going to have a lower cost of goods sold. Or if you're selling digital service, there's going to be less customer support, less sales costs involved, and so forth. So it's going to be a more profitable price. Or you may want to find the price that is in between, on the right side of a price wall that sort of have a high sales volume but also high revenue. Once you have this data, setting the right price it takes 30 seconds.
Yep. So you have some proprietary methodology that you came up with on how to calculate these optimal revenue and profit pricing points without having to go to market with these different prices first.
Correct. We have a proprietary way of doing market research, and then the data that we collect from the market is being analyzed by a piece of AI software that we have developed, and from that piece of software we get the advice. But these are very technical advice, and then I have business people looking at those advice or the data that comes out of the software and really make humanly understandable practical advice. So we tell our customers, again, focus on this customer profile, use these features and functions in your sales and marketing, and if you haven't developed them yet, why don't develop them, those that leads to the highest sales and revenue, and use these marketing channels, these marketing messages, and so forth. So it really becomes a hard data-based go-to-market strategy for any company that want to take itself to the next level.
Yeah. So I want to share with you now the experiment that we tried last year and get your thoughts on it. So I brought in a COO who thought that our prices were too high. And when you look at the competition in the marketplace, we're premium priced, right? So he pitched me on reducing the price significantly, but removing my involvement in those engagements, which I thought was worth a try, because I can't scale this agency much higher with my personal involvement in every single engagement. So we came up with two.
I have the same issue.
Two pricing tiers, one without my involvement and one with. And our margins got destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. So we have clients still on those lower pricing tiers on monthly retainers, and I can't just jack up the price on them. They probably can't afford it, and yeah, it just feels like pulling the rug out from under them. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that experiment? First of all, it was more than an experiment. It was kind of an all-in sort of strategy. And then what do you think about the results that we received?
I assume that the COO is not longer with your company.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, what he did or she did was that he forgot one of the most important things, and that is understanding the reason why people buy from you and how to defend higher prices. You suddenly attracted a different kind of customers, just like in the example with that phone system in the cloud. You attracted customers who doesn't care about your involvement, and for that reason they have a lower willingness to pay, and that's why they bought the cheaper price. And but you, in the end, are the biggest differentiator and the biggest reason why you have pricing power. So he took away that pricing power, and suddenly you became more of a commodity. And because of that, he destroyed your whole value proposition. Now, what you should do with these lower margin customers is that you should start increasing your prices, maybe by 5% every 6 months. And I can tell you that they probably won't notice. But as you go, over time, this is going to make a difference. And certainly if you can prove them the result you have done, even at the lower price, you're going to see margins increasing on those clients. Now, there's a method of increasing prices, and it's all about messaging and so forth. So I've written a little guide to how you can increase prices successfully. And it's not rocket science, but it's a method. And most companies who increase prices simply just do it on a whim, and that's often a recipe for disaster. So
yeah. So is this guide on Amazon? Is it like a free download, or?
Well, it is. There's an earlier version of it on Amazon, and I updated it, so it's really available on my company's website.
Okay.
So
awesome. So it's a paid document.
No, it's free.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll include
Yeah.
a link to it in the show notes for this episode. That sounds like a really great piece of content, and awesome.
There's more. There's more actually. I just recently completed the masterclass on pricing, and that's also something that is paid for, and that's also available on the website. It's 19 video episodes, each of them being between 10 to 15 minutes, and they are it's about 4.5 hours of content, and it's what we talked about here today is just scratching the surface. There's so much more that you want to know when it comes to real pricing.
So I got to ask, how did you come up with the price for this online course, and what is that price?
Well, the price for the online course is $950, and what I did, not only for this but also for our own services, we've eaten our own dog food, so we've done the research to find out what customers are willing to pay for the stuff that we do. We understood the the marketing messages and so forth that drives the highest sales volume and the highest willingness to pay. So yeah, we're eating our own dog food.
And how do you charge for the bigger engagements? Is it on a monthly retainer? Is it a project based?
No,
is it all custom pricing?
It's project based. It's project based, and it's in the tens of thousands. So we work with. I mean, I'll tell you what. When I have so many startups that come to us, and they say that we're going to launch this product, we're going to launch this service, and I really need to know what price I should charge, and they can't afford us. At the same time, I want to help people. I want to help entrepreneurs, and I'm presenting for entrepreneurial programs all over the place all the time. And so one of the reasons I did this course was that for a much more affordable price, they can teach themselves and at least get the basics right, So, and on that note, let me tell you the most common mistakes or mistake I have seen entrepreneurial companies do when they launch. They come up with some kind of innovative product or service. And when you have something innovative, something disruptive, you're only going to appeal to early adopters. And the problem with early adopters is that there's only a few of them. And they buy for all different reasons, but low price is not one of the reasons. What happened here often is that these entrepreneurs, they go to market, they struggle for a year or so, and then they look at what they promised investors and the money they still have in the bank, and they panic. And what happens after that panic is that they they lower their prices. And what then going to happen? They do so, lower their prices in an attempt to sell more. But what then going to happen is that they may even sell less. They certainly are not going to sell more. And then they can't increase their prices again. So instead of being that change that will elevate the company, it will be the change that actually kills the company, because they kill themselves, because these early adopters, the very few of them are often willing to pay very high prices.
Yeah. Now, what do you do about inflation? Because if you keep the price the same, your dollar erodes along with everybody else's as inflation kicks in, and the reported inflation rate is, I think, underreported, and they're trying to brush some things under the rug. It's, I think, practically speaking, a lot higher. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so too, at least based on what I'm paying. I mean, you need to raise your prices. That's how simple it is. And you need to have that process of raising prices, and you need to find the fence that makes sense to your client to raise prices. And one of the things that you want to message when you raise prices is simply that you just like in your case, you held your prices for a very long time, and as cost increases, you cannot any longer assume your cost. You have to raise your prices, because otherwise you have to degrade the service that you provide, and that sort of leads to another issue, and that is price wars. If you think about who's the winner in the price war, and the answer is nobody. And that is because if you're in the price war, eventually the companies that involved in that price war have to degrade their product or service to the point that it doesn't leave any value to the customer.
It's
anymore.
A race to the bottom.
Like this story. Yeah, exactly. And as a like as an example, think about this donut shop, that was in the price war, and they had to reduce their cost. So what is the cost? Well, the amount of dough used in the donut. So eventually they reduced the cost so much so that the donut disappeared. They make the hole bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you don't have a product anymore. And obviously we can see that in the airline industry. I mean, I'm an old fart, and I know how it used to be to fly, and it was compared to today, it was a pretty comfortable experience.
Those were the good old days.
Yeah, and that's because they're in this price war, and every American airline except Southwest have gone through bankruptcy in the last 15 years. Everyone. And most of them has as a result disappeared. Some of them have been bought in bankruptcy by other airlines, but 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 has simply folded. That, of course, means less competition for us, and loss of jobs, and all different bad things.
All right, last question here before we wrap up, and that is, what are your thoughts about RFM, recency, frequency, and monetary value? I haven't heard that acronym for a while now. It's been years.
I've never heard it.
Okay, you've never heard it. Well, that's good. So it's really not relevant to today, or maybe never was. Okay, great. Quick answer to that. All right. And where does our listener or viewer go to learn more? Obviously, your website for the online course and that free download. But what can they expect from an initial outreach to you to maybe hire you? Do you give them a strategy call, and how do they get that going?
Yeah, the way it works is really, and I have to tell you this, that the results that we give our clients is leads to a hockey stick of sales and revenue. And that by itself leads to a much higher company valuation. And at the moment, I'm getting a good portion, more than half of my business from private equity groups. And what that really means is that private equity group that controls portfolio companies. And ever so often I get an email from somebody's CEO, and he or she tells me that I have been told we should talk. So valuation should be on the mindset of every founder of a company, you know. So what you get, you can obviously follow me on LinkedIn. I post little pricing tips every day on LinkedIn, things that you should think about as you do your pricing, as you think about your pricing. I have a whole bunch of articles on Medium and on other sources. I am, interviewed quite frequently, like this interview. So there's and links on that is also on the website.
So there's a wealth of information. So there's online that you've.
There's absolutely a wealth.
That's
of
awesome. And the best place to start is your website, which is.
Yes. Yeah. It's my last name, Sjofors.com.
And how do you spell that?
Well, I assume the audience can see
they're listening in their car or at the gym. So how do you spell it?
Okay. It's sjofors.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Per. This was fabulous and inspiring, and I'm going to make some pricing changes. Thank you so much.
Well, you also need to tell me how it went, and to be honest, if you want to have an offline conversation, we can talk a little bit in details.
Thank you. And listener, this guy's legit. So if you need some pricing help, he's the go-to guy. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.